Okay, so I know I'm just beating a dead horse by repeatedly making the same points and talking about the same stuff. And you just sound like a broken record, but it just is what it is, man. You just got to be able to come on here and you just got to be able to eat your crow and you just got to be able to call out your team when they just simply don't play well and live up to expectations. So, this is pretty much going to be the last video talking about this season. The 2024 season is over. The Packers finished 0-6 against the best teams in the NFC. The Eagles, the Vikings, and the Lions being swept by two of them in our division. And losing twice to the Eagles to start the season and to end our season. So if that don't show you exactly how the season was going to play out, I don't know what will. You begin your season losing to the Eagles, and then you end your season losing to the Eagles. You couldn't write it. You couldn't write a more better script than that, I guess. But so yeah, let's just go ahead and talk about this game, man. It's gonna be a lengthy video, so you stay around. I appreciate it. So one of the biggest problems right off the bat with the Green Bay Packers was once again another slow start. Right away at the beginning of the game, the Packers come out and Keyshawn Nixon fumbles on the kickoff return. And majority of the times, Keyshawn Nixon is very secure with the football, so I definitely didn't see that coming. But when it happened, that just pretty much showed you exactly how the rest of the game was going to be. It's a what's the right word to describe it? It's almost like a taboo, basically. It's a taboo. Like when something like that happens right away to start the game, that they just can't simply recover from it. And that was just another emphasis of the Green Bay Packers wanted to come out, and the biggest way that you were going to win this football game is by playing mistake-free football. And once again, they don't play mistake-free football and instead turn the ball over in the first, right at the start of the game with Keyshawn Nixon fumbling. Even though you can argue that Keyshawn Nixon technically recovered that ball and they still gave it to the Eagles. So I'm not sure exactly what the refs were seeing, why they didn't overturn that call. But the fumble in general was just, again, just a taboo, just to show you just exactly how the game was going to go and how the Packers are going to be playing catch-up football for the rest of the game, which I already saw that coming. And I really want a lot of people who watch, I'm not going to say a lot of people, but for the people who do watch my videos, I really try to make it a point each time I make a video to make it a point that the Packers are just not as good as we think they are. And I hate being a downer, and I hate saying that and speaking about my football team that way, but you just got to call it for what it is. You just got to call it for what it is. I mean, the Green Bay Packers came into this game having already lost 2 straight games coming into the postseason. So they had pretty much no momentum to speak of coming into this football game, and was already down a player with Christian Watson getting hurt early in that Bears game. So if anybody who had even had the expectations that they were going to come out and they were going to start off fast and they're going to be clicking and all cylinders and everything else, you were fooling yourself. It just wasn't going to happen. There was nothing about this game that was going to prove to me that they were going to come out and they were going to come out here and prove me wrong or prove other Packers fans wrong and say no, we're better than we think we are. And at the end of the day, they just aren't. They're not as good as a lot of fans want to believe that they are. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that, yes, I think ultimately the reason why they had a lot of us fooled is simply due to the fact that they overachieved last year. I mean, you just gotta say it. They overachieved. They went to Dallas. They really shouldn't even made the postseason last year. How bad the offense was to start the beginning of Jordan Love's term as starting quarterback. When you look at how bad they played the first half of the 2023 season, and then all of a sudden they just caught fire to end the season, and Jordan Love had a big stretch where he was playing some good football, and next thing you know, we're in the playoffs. We're in the playoffs, and we go on the road and we just beat down the Cowboys, and and then we almost beat the San Francisco 49ers. But I ultimately sum up the 2023 season as just still us overachieving. We probably never should have made it that far, but because we made it that far, the expectations going to this season was a lot more higher. They gave Jordan Love a big contract, and they gave Jordan Love a big contract. We signed Josh Jacobs. We signed Xavier McKinney. Both those guys were great signings. Both of them had great seasons. And because we made those moves in the offseason, then now the expectation was to get to the Super Bowl. And I think that's ultimately why this season definitely was. I just think ultimately that's what affected the season the most was the high expectation that of this young football team to push and to make a run and push their way into a Super Bowl because we got so far last year due to overachieving. And I just think that the Packers just simply aren't there yet. They're just not a great football team. They're still a young football team that's very undisciplined, committing a lot of stupid penalties and mistakes. They don't have that. They don't have that stud at wide receiver. Jordan Love is the best way I could describe Jordan Love is that he's a streaky quarterback where he'll have a string of games where he's playing well, then he'll have a string of games where he isn't playing well. And unfortunately, that's the Jordan Love we got in this football game. He pretty much arguably had his worst game as a starter. 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Nothing was going right in the passing game. And it was only worse due to Elton Jenkins' injury. They could not replace him. They struggled to replace him. The offensive line played absolutely terrible in the pass protection. And Jordan Love, he was just out there. He just wasn't seeing the field very well. He threw some really bad interceptions. You know, he did the first pick when he went downfield to Dontayvion Wicks, who had no separation on Darius Slade. That was really good coverage. That ball should never have been thrown, but he takes a shot. And the thing is, you're not exactly mad that he took the shot. It's the fact that the ball was just not there. That the ball was just underthrown, and Dontayvion Wicks had no chance to make a play on that football because of already with the tight coverage that was already on him. And that's just kind of how Jordan Love's played throughout the whole season, where his deep ball hasn't been that good. Has not been that good. His accuracy has just been all over the place. He's not throwing guys open. He's not seeing the field very well. And just overall, Jordan Love has definitely regressed from the season ago. And I don't think it's time to just say, okay, well, he's a bust. We should move on with him. No, I just think that what they need to do right now with Jordan Love is I just think that you got your money. And I'm not mad that the Packers paid him. I'm not mad that Green Bay Packers paid Jordan Love. Because right now there's no other option, no better option out there for you. All the other better quarterbacks are already on their football teams doing what they got to do. So right now there is no better option out there. Joe Love was your guy. Joe Love was your guy and has proven that he can go out there and play some good football. So I'm not mad that they paid him. At the end of the day, that's just what you got to do. Because what would you rather him do? Just leave and I guess go to some other football team, and then you're stuck with Sean Clifford like way we were to start the season and off season, stuck with Sean Clifford and those guys, and you want to then go on for the rest of the season being 4 or 5, only win like 4 or 5, 6 games. No, at the end of the day, Jordan Love was your best option at quarterback, and he played well enough to help us win the amount of games that we won this season. So I'm not trying to just completely just defend him, but the point is, I just think that, and for Jordan Love's sake, he definitely just needs to get better in a lot of areas and get better with his footwork in the pocket, reading the defense, getting his eyes downfield, fixing the turnover where he throws. I just think all those things he should and can get better at. Because one good thing I like about Jordan Love is his ability to avoid getting sacked. He can stand there in the pocket and he can make the throws when you give him time. And I think what ultimately also what can help him out is if you get him a stud at wide receiver. Because it's not just Jordan Love who took a step back this season, was also our wide receivers. All those guys. Christian Watson, he stayed healthy for the majority of the season, but then crashed and burned towards the end of the season. But still, he didn't have a lot of receptions. He didn't have a whole lot of yards just coming into the season. Jaden Reed, who looked like he was just going to explode throughout the entire season, really, really hit a wall in the second half of the season where he just wasn't getting any targets whatsoever. And then Romeo Dobbs right now, you just got to be concerned with his health. Romeo Dobbs has had multiple concussions so far, and even in this game where he got the concussion, that probably could have been avoided if Jordan Love didn't throw that football to begin with. which is another issue when it comes to his game, where he's just heaving the ball downfield and just throwing up for grabs, hoping that these guys are going to come down and make a play. And sometimes you just can't make those throws. Sometimes you're just better off just tucking it down and running. And I know Jordan Love is not as athletic as guys like Jalen Hurts or even Bo Nix or Josh Allen for that matter when running the football. But sometimes you're better off just tucking it and running rather than throwing it into an area where it's just not there. And I just think that Romeo Dobbs' latest head injury could have been completely avoided had he not thrown that football. So again, you got Christian Watson who can't stay healthy. You got Romeo Dobbs who's also having health issues with all these head injuries. You got Jaden Reed who just vanishes a lot in the offense. You got Dontavian Wicks who has drop problems, and then you got Tucker Kraft who I think definitely should and should be a big part of the offense every single game. A lot of times his touches are limited, and you're not involving him enough into the offense. And then you don't have enough depth at offensive linemen to make up for injuries to guys like Elton Jenkins. And when I first round pick Jordan Morgan already being on IR and out for the season. So those are just areas that Green Bay has to get better at. And it's crazy that we're now going into the offseason talking about how we need to improve the offense compared to on the defensive side of the ball. But to be honest with you, if you really go back, the Green Bay's, to me, the Packers' offense was really regressing and getting worse over time under Matt LaFleur, even before Jordan Love took over. And I really, really hate to say that, but if you really watch how Aaron Rodgers' career ended here, and you just look at the way those games were going, our passing attack was terrible, even before Jordan Love took over. So I don't know exactly what the answer is and what Matt LaFleur needs to do. Whether he needs to really evaluate his playbook, stop being so afraid to call more plays under center. Like the fact that we were just constantly just out there lined up a shotgun majority of the game was just frustrating. Because when we actually lined up on the center and gave the ball to Josh Jacobs with a lead run blocker, he was actually getting some decent yards. And Jordan Love was connecting with some more passes underneath. And sometimes that's you just got to take what the defense gives you. This Eagles defense is not going to allow you to make big explosive plays down the field. You just got to take what they give you. And it just seems like Matt just simply did not want to gameplay in that scenario. And that's ultimately what's so frustrating about Matt LaFleur's tenure right now as head coach, is that he just seems that he just can never get these guys motivated and just has these guys out there playing like they just didn't game plan whatsoever. Like, these guys never look like they're ready for these big games and these big matchups. This team is just soft. All right? The team is just soft. You just got to call what it is. We're just soft. So, yeah. That's just pretty much where we're at right now, man. The Packers got a lot of work to do as far as getting better on offensive side of football. Maybe Matt can just take the time to just bring in an actual offensive coordinator in here to where he doesn't have to put so much pressure on himself to call these plays, get better at his clock management. Like, there's a lot of things that really is hurting this offense in so many ways. The only bright side about our offense is just Josh Jacobs. He was the only guy that really went out there and looked like he showed up to play. Everybody else stunk. The offensive line stunk. Jordan Love stunk. Matt LaFleur stunk. The only guy who showed up was Josh Jacobs. That was it. So, and then, like I said, the rest of the wide receivers also stunk. So I just think, and granted, I will say that I just hope that Reed, Dobbs, and all the rest of those guys can feel better from all the injuries that they sustained in this game. But even before those guys went down, the Packers just weren't showing any signs of life at all. Even before those guys went down. So it sucks to see them get hurt. But I just wasn't seeing anything positive with our offense, even when they were on the field. So I just think that now that, again, to go back, like I said, Jordan Love, you got your money. And I know that expectation is for you to go out there and play like you're worth that money that we spent on you. And I just think that ultimately, now that he has his money, he can actually spend an entire training camp working with Matt LaFleur and the rest of the wide receivers. We don't have to worry about him holding out or anything like that. And those guys can become more of a sync with each other. Because I just think that when you really think about it, when you look at how it just seemed like Matt LaFleur didn't seem like he had that much. That he didn't have the biggest faith in Jordan Love, at least the beginning of last year, where he just kind of definitely handcuffed him. But then when he let the handcuffs off, it allowed Jordan and the offense to get it going and play a lot more better football. And it just seems like Matt just wanted to just once again put the handcuffs on. I don't know, man. But yeah, so that's so yeah, man. I hate they have went so much on the offense, but you just gotta call it what it is, man. Our offense is just terrible. They got to get better if they want to have any chance of competing with the best teams in the NFL. And I don't think that you're gonna find that unless Brian Goodis really hits it home in the draft in the first round, which he really hasn't over the last couple of years. I know guys like Rashawn Gary, got voted to a Pro Bowl again and stuff, but I just really just think that the Packers just need to find a really good playmaker, a guy that the defense is gonna look at and be like, okay, look, that guy right there, we gotta stop and we gotta be ready for. The Packers just don't have that right now on offense, other than Josh Jacobs. That's it. They gotta find another guy that's gonna really grab their defense attention, and I think that's definitely a wide receiver. And I just think that Good really needs to get better when it comes to his drafting, especially in the first round. He's got to really find some dynamic playmakers in the first round, because these first round picks over the last few years have just not done it for us. As far as the defense is concerned, I mean, overall, I like Jeff Hafley. I do. I do like Jeff Hafley. I think Jeff Hafley did as well as he could with what he had to work with. You can't really ask more from the defense when you watch the way they played this football game. And I think ultimately with guys like Quay Walker and Evan Williams coming back, it definitely helped the defense out a ton. And the Eagles' offense, you can't expect to stop them in all game, but the defense did enough and played well enough for the offense to be able to go out there and take advantage and score some points. But unfortunately, we didn't. So I just think that the defense can definitely be a problem going forward if we can get a pass rush. I know Rashawn Gary actually had a nice, decent game, but I don't trust that guy throughout a whole 17-game season to be destructive, because he just isn't. He's not that type of guy. And I just think that guys like Lucas Van Ness is already reached his ceiling. He's never going to be what we need him to be. And I just think that ultimately guys like Kenny Clark, who are being paid a whole lot of money, either needs to step his game up or just move on from him. Same thing with Jair, who's never out there on the field, always hurt. So I just think that cornerback and defensive line is definitely a problem, and that definitely needs to be addressed in this year's draft, man. Those are two things that definitely the Packers need to focus on. I like Edgerrin Cooper. The guy's really good. I hope he just continues to get better. Like I said, Xavier Kinney was a good signing. Definitely worth the money we played him. Evan Williams turned out to be a good draft pick. And I just think that you just got to go back into the draft again, and even try to shop for some guys in free agency. It's not like we don't have the cap space. We do. And I just think that's ultimately what you need if you want to be a great football team. I understand that, again, for the longest time as Packers, the Packers want to build through the draft and they want to be young and youthful, but sometimes you just need those veterans in there to balance out the football team, and you just need playmakers in here. Because you see what signing Josh Jacobs and Xavier Kinney did for both sides of the football. You just got to keep that going. Continue being aggressive in the free agents. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles did. And now you see how much it completely turned their season around. From how bad they stunk towards the end of last season. So to me, Gunt just got to be aggressive. He's got to go out to these free agents and try to get more guys in here. because I just don't think you're just going to find the answer right away in the draft, because then you're just going to spend the next couple more years hoping that these guys can develop into what you need them to be. I just don't think that's the formula to winning and competing for a championship. And if that is the formula, then you got to be able to hit home right away with that draft pick. You can't miss. You can't miss. And I think ultimately that's just what we done. We missed. And when you miss, you're just going to continue to lose in the exact same fashion. Nothing's ever going to change. And the season is just going to go out exactly the way it's going to go out. You're never going to improve. It get better. And I ultimately just think that's what ultimately hurts about this season, is that it's not that the Packers lost. I mean, that was to be expected. It's just that they lost in the exact same fashion as they did all season to better teams. And it just shows that there were zero corrections to be made from start to finish, and it just sucks. You hate to see it. So, like I said, Guns just got to get better. Drafted some guys in it, or we're never going to get over the hump. You got to get some guys in here. You got to get Joe Love a really stud to throw the ball to, man. You look at all these quarterbacks across the league. Baker Mayfield. He has Mike Evans, Jane Daniels. He's young. He's younger than Joe Love, but he has Terry McLaurin. Jalen Hurts has AJ Brown. A lot of these quarterbacks who are playing well and having good seasons have those guys to throw the ball to. Matthew Stafford has Puka. Sam Darnold has Justin Jefferson. And the thing is, having some diversity and youth at wide receiver is not a bad thing, but you still need the guy that defense is going to have to worry about. And if that's not addressed, and we come into the next year the same way, we're going to get the same results. But I just hope that a lot of guys that came out of this game injured, like Elton Jenkins, Romeo Dobbs, Jay Reed, Josh Myers, Quay Walker, and I even think Josh Jacobs eventually got banged up and had to be taken out for the rest of the game. I just hope that all those guys can heal up throughout this off season and come back 100%. I mean, touching on Joe Love, I don't even think he was 100%, to be honest with you. And I think that's also a very key important thing, is keeping him healthy for next season. Because I think Jordan Love's injuries, played a big factor in his progression overall. I just think injuring his arm, his hand, or his elbow, whichever one it was, you can definitely probably say maybe it did affect him, and he was just trying to go out there and tough it out, which I appreciate. I read he go out there and tough it out, just still try to play. But you can argue that maybe overall, just him just being in and out of the lineup and just being injured a lot throughout the season definitely affected his game. So hopefully he can stay healthy coming to next season. And as I said, all the rest of the guys who got hurt, hopefully they're all okay and they'll heal up before the next season starts. But yeah, man, I just think that the 2024 season Packers, they came into this season with Super Bowl expectations based on the fact that we had that insane Linsanity run at the end of 2020 season. So expectations were very high, and they just simply couldn't live up to it because they simply were not as good as we wanted to think that they were. And they proved that the first couple of games this season. They proved that right away when we played better teams, like the Eagles and the Vikings. Now, granted, again, we played the Eagles much better the first time around, but then we played the Vikings at home, stunk up the place for like 3 quarters, stunk up the place against the Lions the entire game at home. They showed you right there and there what type of team they were. So they're not there yet, man. So yeah. Just young, stupid, undisciplined, all those things. And then the abandonment of play action, the lack of under center concepts, horrific clock and game management. All these things just come together as to why the Packers are now just going to be sitting at home. So I just hope that the Eagles, now that the Eagles have beaten us and knocked us out of this playoffs, I just hope that they move on and they knock out at least the Vikings or the Lions, one of those two teams. Because obviously I don't want to see neither one of them in the Super Bowl, but one of them probably will get there. So hopefully the Eagles can knock one of those two teams out. So, yeah, but that's pretty much all I got, man. I can't say or talk about anything else for the season without repeating the same talking points over and over. Overall, just the Packers just got a lot of work to do, man. They want to compete in the NFC, they want to play in the NFC, and they want to go up against these good teams like the Vikings, Lions, Eagles. They got a lot of work to do, and we'll just see what happens, man. Yeah, I'm personally predicting it'll be more of the same, but maybe they'll prove us wrong, just maybe. But that's all I got, man. I still love the Packers at the end of the day. Can't wait to talk about them again next season. Until then, go Pack, go.